to CMQs, the Scottish Sun's politics show. It's been a big day in Westminster. It's been budget day. The dust has only just settled. Rachel Reeves sat down a couple of hours ago after delivering an hour and 17 minutes, I think it was, of her budget speech. Here with me this week, my name's Conor, Matchett, political editor, is Chris Musson, the associate editor for politics. Chris, how was the budget for you? Was it as exciting and thoroughly engrossing as it always is?
I mean, this is the biggest day for people like me and Conor. This is what we get into this for, or something. It's like I feel like the Wolf of Wall Street today. We're just like running around and covered in numbers and shouting at each other and stuff. Not really.
Champagne's in the fridge, isn't it?
It's a lot more sober than that in reality. Conor said the dust has settled. I disagree. It hasn't settled, right? The dust will settle in the coming days. So anything we say on this is subject to change when the small print is finally examined properly. Because that's what happens with these events. Yep. It's like Rachel Reeves stands up, or the Chancellor stands up, says all these things. We all note it down and say, she said this, that and the other. And then within hours, everything starts to unravel. Yep. Not the saying this will, but
it might.
Yeah, it might.
And probably will.
This is what we know at this point.
Absolutely. So we're going to take you through the top 6 things we think you should know broadly in today's budget. Let's kick it off with the main tax changes from Rachel Reeves today. And we're going to kick it off with a long-time Sun campaign on fuel duty. Chris, take us through it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a really big victory for the Sun's Keep It Down campaign with fuel duty, no increase in fuel duty, which has been kept at level for 14 years. A lot to do with the Sun's campaign. And again, today was such a bit of a surprise to quite a lot of people, but Rachel Reeves says this will cost £3 billion. But it's worth it because of it's essentially a tax on hard workers, on strivers, and no fuel duty increase. So that's a real boost for working people. Income tax wise, if we're still talking about taxes. Now, obviously, income tax is devolved in Scotland, large parts of it, but the personal allowance, the level at which you start paying taxes, is still reserved. And Rachel Reeves has that is kept at the same level. But she's saying she's not going to keep it there beyond 2028.
Basically, she's following what the government, the Tory government, set out. And after that period, which is 28, 29, I think, she'll unfreeze it and rise it with inflation. Yeah. That's the end to something called fiscal drag, which is what economists like to call stealth taxes, something where as inflation gets higher, as your wages go higher, by freezing that personal allowance, you end up paying more in tax overall.
You get hoovered into that tax band. Yeah.
Do you want to do that again?
No.
So that's one of the big things. And part of that, actually, to be fair, that comes with it is there's been a big increase to minimum wage announced by Rachel Reeves, actually announced yesterday in the papers and on TV. Yeah. But she confirmed it in the House of Commons this morning, which is an increase of the national living wage from $11.44 to $12.21. Now that, again, immediately will hoover more people into paying tax.
Yeah, it will. 6.7% increase. And then the national minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds is going up from £8.60 to £10 an hour. So this is good news for workers, but then we come on to national insurance, which less so. Now, one of Labour's big promises at the general election was not to increase taxes on working people. So what they've done is they've increased national insurance contributions that businesses will actually pay. Yeah. And they're saying that this will not affect workers. Now, pretty much anyone who knows what they're talking about disagrees with this and says, right, if you increase national insurance for firms, that's going to get passed on to the workers. That was said again today by the IFS, Paul Johnson from the IFS, straight out off the bat saying that. And the OBR's predictions for household incomes reflect that as well. Like they're not really going to go up as much as might be expected because they expect, it seems, workers to actually, carry the can for this. So it's a good news, bad news. It always is with these budgets. It's good news, bad news, and it's really difficult to work out in these early stages, which one will outweigh the other.
And it's not a small tax rise either, this one. I mean, the idea, this is £40 billion worth of tax rises was announced by Rachel Reeves in Westminster today. £25 billion of that is through this employer national insurance rise, which sees it going from 13.8% to 15%. Part of that is to pay for the national insurance employees' contribution, the sort of thing that you see on your pay slip that was cut twice by the Tories in advance of the election early this year. But on top of that, businesses are going to start paying national insurance earlier when it comes to the amount of money that people are earning. I mean, it's a monumentally huge tax rise, and to suggest that it's just something that businesses won't notice is for the birds.
Well, I know it's massive, and this has helped push the tax burden, as we call it, the like percentage of GDP, national income that taxes are now to, I think it's 38% it's going up to. So 38% of GDP is going to be like taxes, or the equivalent of. It's a massive amount, and it's the biggest increase in taxes, isn't it, since just after the Second World War, I think.
It's massive.
It's massive.
And it also will come on to the broader impacts for Scotland, but we'll touch on them here as well, is that this obviously has an impact for public sectors as well, because it's your employer who pays these. So if you're paid by the NHS, or you're paid by the prison service, or you're a fireman or whatever, it's those people, councils, it's your council who will pay those higher national insurance contributions.
And it's not clear at this stage whether there's going to be any kickback there, whether essentially public sector or different parts of the public sector are going to get compensated for that. So it could end up costing public services as well.
Pensions, take us through that.
Pensions, so the triple lock on pensions is going to be maintained, which means an increase next year. Also related to pensions, inheritance tax is going to be liable now on pension pots. It wasn't previously. This is one of the other ways that they're kind of raiding taxes, is by essentially nicking some of pension pots of people who die.
Yeah, previously I think it was if you were under 75 and you died, your pension pot was exempt from inheritance tax.
Yeah, now they're going to be dipping that too.
So let's move on to Scotland specific stuff. So obviously Westminster budgets, lots of things apply in Scotland because they apply UK-wide, and you'll know that we'll have our own Holyrood budget on December the 4th as well, which will set out the Scottish Government spending plans. We'll briefly look at that shortly, but Chris, two other big things. Alcohol duty is a big issue in Scotland with the whisky industry, and also North Sea oil and gas. What's the takeaways from those industries?
Those two industries are in a foul mood tonight with Rachel Reeves. Basically, alcohol-wise, she essentially took a penny off draft beer, off a pint of draft beer, but everyone else is getting an increase, and that means the Scotch Whisky Association are absolutely seething. North Sea industry is not happy either. They are being more measured in their statements today, but they are clearly unhappy with the fact that the windfall tax, which was brought in, of course, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to tax these excess profits which were caused by that. Now that's been extended and increased, so they're deeply unhappy about that. So, and then on to the wider issue to do with...
Yeah, absolutely. So Rachel Reeves stood up very proudly, I think, in front of her many Scottish Labour MPs, announced that the budget would bring about 3.4 billion in extra cash for the Scottish Government for the 2025-26 financial year, and 1.43 billion, we understand, for this financial year, as in the one that is going to end in April. Now, if you've got long memories, or not even that long memories, short memories, you'll remember Shona Robertson, the SNP Finance Secretary, in September standing up in Parliament and outlining £1 billion worth of savings. You'll also remember massive inflation-busting pay rises for NHS workers, for council workers. There's still strike action ongoing there, all of which suggests that this is a lot of money to bail out the Nats.
That's exactly what it is. Make no mistake, I mean, this is a massive bailout for the SNP, who have overspent massively in the last few years. And it's come in the middle of the year, and it's a huge gift to them. They have now basically got an extra 1.43 billion this year, which they can use on whatever. I wouldn't be surprised to see some increased spending on council pay deals, for example, but I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in light of this. But there's that, and then they've got another £2.8 billion a year in day-to-day spending going forward over the next few years, and then some, an extra 600 million for capital for investing in projects cash. So it's a huge amount of money, and yet they have been bailed out here. But the big challenge now for the Scottish Government over this next couple of years, they've got less than 2 years before the 2026 Holyrood election. They've got to show that this money makes a difference, or you will have Labour saying, we gave you all this extra money and you failed to turn around public services.
It's a trap, isn't it? It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a challenge, yeah. You could couch it as a trap. It's going to be used to hammer the SNP with if things do not start getting better over the next couple of years. Now, the Scottish Government ministers will say, yeah, okay, so it is a little bit extra, but it's not very much. It's not very much, and we're having to cut our cloth accordingly still. So we'll get that out of them. But we were looking back at the press releases that came out from the SNP over the past couple of weeks, and everything has been about Labour austerity. And today's response to the budget didn't mention austerity once, I presume because they thought it would just be preposterous to say that an increase in public spending by £70 billion is austerity. So
your favourite quote, I think, today from Stephen Flynn, who's the Westminster leader of the SNP, is, it's clear the SNP is winning the argument on the need for more investment in our NHS and public services. And what you need to do in politics, Chris, is famously win arguments, not elections.
That's right, Jeremy. And Stephen Flynn essentially wants us to think that, if you're watching Stephen, I'm afraid it wasn't because of what you said, what Rachel Reeves did today. But hey, we'll let you dine out on that.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much, home, for watching. You can read all about the budget on thescottishsun.co.uk. So make sure you do and sign up to our newsletter as well, where there'll be budget-themed whispers as well as other gossip and all the best stories from the Scottish Sun's political team. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.